Hello everyone, and thank you very much for inviting me to talk today about how Scotland should manage its resources and materials to tackle the climate emergency. I won't have time to cover all the changes needed, but will suggest a few at the individual, community, organisation and policy levels. So first, considering individuals. This slide shows some results of a survey we did in May last year. So this and other surveys show that people don't like waste and want products that can be repaired. They also want more materials to be recyclable and think that manufacturers and retailers should take more responsibility for the environmental impact of their products. There are other parts of a more circular economy which are less universally appealing. I'm mainly thinking of a shift away from ownership to more sharing or leasing of products that are typically idle for much of the time, for example, private cars or tools. Community-based enterprises are part of the solution. We're lucky in this country to have a strong tradition of second-hand shops and community-based ventures that help us prolong the life of products. There are now a growing number of local reuse and repair cafes or hubs, tool libraries and other local circular economy supporting ventures. It would be great if everyone had access to a repair and reuse centre. Organisations also have an important role to play in the changes needed. An obvious area is innovation. There's a lot of innovation going on in recycling technologies and the use of materials. Also, new business models are emerging that ensure materials and products are kept in high productive use for as long as possible. Often this means that the businesses retain ownership of the products and hire out a service, for example, fashion rentals or furniture leasing. Making much better use of the resources we have and using secondary raw materials often requires new partnerships, typically between those who have the material resources and those who have the expertise to use it. There's a company in Scotland that's using shellfish waste in the manufacture of a new compostable film. Public bodies are major consumers and can use their purchasing power to support the transition to a more circular economy. For example, they can purchase second-hand office equipment, or they can decide to renovate buildings rather than build new ones. Lastly, extended producer responsibility. This is when producers become responsible for products when they're no longer in use. To date, these schemes have generally only improved recycling of certain products, for example batteries, but if they're designed well, they should incentivise the design of products that will last a long time through differentiated fees that the producers have to pay or take-back commitments. So last but not least, public policy. Although the idea of a circular economy is popular and it has been shown that there are significant economic and job opportunities, it still needs public policy to make that shift that's required. Taxes on virgin materials should be considered, such as a carbon tax, which taxes the burning of fossil fuels and makes high carbon products more expensive. The UK government is introducing a plastic tax, which will tax drink bottles which contain less than 30% recycled content. Taxes on other virgin materials are also worth exploring. VAT on repair and refurbishment should be reduced to make repair more affordable and attractive. Pay-as-you-throw or save-as-you-recycle schemes can act as an incentive to households to reduce their waste. Householders would pay for waste in the black bins but not for recycling. This is used successfully in other countries, and although it would take a bit of getting used to, it mirrors the way we pay for other utilities. And charges to encourage people to change behaviour, for example, the carrier bag charge and the planned coffee cup charge. I should add that the Scottish Government doesn't have powers over all areas of fiscal policy, so some measures need to be explored on a UK basis. But on top of this, there are two areas which would help. First, improved data. At the moment, we don't have good data on material flows, and this is really important if we're to make informed policy. And second, targets. We have a number of waste and recycling targets, but we feel we need a target to reduce our overall consumption of virgin materials. This will really focus minds on how to optimise our use of materials across the board. The UK government is currently considering a resource efficiency target for England. A couple of final thoughts. First, on climate change policy and territorial versus footprint emissions. The graph shows the difference between our territorial emissions, those that occur in Scotland, and our carbon footprint, or the emissions associated with everything we use or consume, regardless of where they are made. Because we import many of our manufactured goods, our carbon footprint is bigger than our territorial emissions. But most climate policy focuses on territorial emissions. However, we need to do more than that, and ending our contribution to the climate emergency involves addressing our footprint as well. Lastly, fairness. It was in the title of the presentation, and I'm aware I haven't said much about it. Some of the policy measures described enact the polluter pays principle, which addresses fairness. And at a global level, we use about 3 times our share of planetary resources. Adopting a more circular economy enables us to tread much more lightly on the planet, extract less raw materials, pollute less, waste less, and move towards one planet prosperity. Lastly, we're increasingly being prevented from exporting waste and will rightly have to manage it ourselves, hopefully reducing and utilising as much as possible. So there's scope for a more circular economy to be a fairer economy in a number of ways.